Hi, I'm Jennifer from Shabby Fabrics. Look at this colorful, beautiful quilt behind me. It's called a Dresden fan, and I cannot wait to show you how to make it. It is super simple using a few tools that I found out in the market. The first one is the Dresden Plate Ruler by Creative Grids. You actually get the Dresden fans and then the center circle as well. Super handy ruler to have. There'll be other projects coming down the pike using that ruler set, so it's a great investment. The other thing that we found when I was actually at Quilt Market in Minneapolis is the Prairie Pointer by Susan Cleveland, and what a dynamic woman she is. She demonstrated this product to me and I was absolutely hooked, so I can't wait to show you how we'll use it in this project, and I have more projects using the Prairie Pointer coming up soon, so be sure to subscribe to our videos so you never miss out on our fun DIY quilting and crafting projects. So let's get started. How do we use these tools to make this project? The neat thing about this is it's absolutely attainable even by a beginner sewer quilter. So even though it looks elaborate and kind of dramatic because of that big fan, let me assure you it's totally easy. Stay with me and let me show you how to do it. The first thing that we did with each Dresden is there's 20 fans. So we just divided that up into 5 fabrics so that each fabric would be cut 4 times. So let's just look at this. We'll start with the pink one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can see that's kind of a quadrant. And then we repeated it again, and again. So we'll get to the sewing part a little bit later on, but I wanted to let you know you really only need 5 fabrics unless maybe you want a bigger variety. I love fabric and I love color, so you might choose to not have any repeating fabrics. That's completely up to you, but we just chose 5 so there'd be a little bit of repetition, a little bit of continuity going on rather than it being completely random. So for today's example, I'm going to use a spinning mat because, as you're going to see as we're working through the project, a spinning mat is super helpful, so I'm not having to shift my fabric around. I'll be working with the red today. The first thing that I found when I was making the Dresden fans is I liked to go ahead and put sizing in there. It gave the fabric a little more body, so when I was sewing all those fans together, things weren't getting distorted. It just seems like it kind of holds the fabric so there's less distortion. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll go ahead and bring our fabrics. These have already been sized ahead of time, and I'm just going to bring those to the spinning mat. Now we're going to use the Dresden portion of the ruler set, and we'll put the circle, which is for the middle, aside for now. Now I want you to come in here and see the ruler. There's several marks starting with the quarter, 1 inch. We're going all the way up to, let's see, 9 inches. So for today's project, I chose a 6-inch fan. So there's the solid line at the 6. So what that means is we're going to want to go ahead, and once we lay our fabrics out, I'm going to go ahead and make them 6 inches this way. And in order to get 4 fans for the actual project that's on the wall, I needed about 10 and a half inches long. So I just wanted to show you how I laid those out initially. We'll get those cut, and then we'll get started. This is, oh my gosh, it was so much fun when I started working with this. Now this is where the ruler, or the mat, comes in handy. Notice I'm not going to really disturb the fabric. I'm going to just shift these around. We are going to be having these on our website. There is just a little bit of an extra shipping charge because it is an awkward shape, but my gosh, they're absolutely totally worth the money, because as you can see, I don't have to disturb my fabrics, so I can be way more accurate. Let's turn that again. I'm in love with this mat. And tell you what we'll do, because I'm not exactly sure what's stacked underneath there, and I want to make sure everything's stacked right on top of each other. That's why I took a little bit more of a slice out of the fabric. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure you cut. What's the old adage? Measure twice, cut once. Yeah, how many times have I learned that lesson? Let's just double check that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because the last thing you want is you've already starched your fabrics, or and now you miscut them. That's not helpful. So let's put that aside for now. All right, this is where this amazing ruler comes in to play. Now we can take the big ruler out of the way. So let's turn this toward ourselves. So you've got the blunt edge, and we'll go ahead and put that on the bottom of the fabric. And there is, I'm going to move this over so I have a little bit more room to cut. Okay, so you can see how I'm lined up here and lined up here. And I'll go ahead and cut. Now this is my favorite trick. I'm not disturbing my fabric. Nothing's going anywhere. I very carefully press back down. And I have my first set of perfectly cut fans. And of course what you would do next is now you just rotate that ruler. Let's come back over here. So that's why you can get so many fans out of not that much fabric, is because you're just kind of flipping the ruler. Now I want you to see me do that again. So there's the next set. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it again. Actually, I should have left that there, shouldn't I? We'll put this down. See how cool this is? The spinny mat makes it so that you really just never disturb the fabric, which means everything will go together much more precisely. And this will go like this, and you'll cut, and now you're done. And you even have fabric left over. Do that. So that's how you'll get everything prepared for your Dresden fans. Now, this is where the prairie pointer comes in super handy. So we're done with the spinning mat. Let's put that aside. And let's go ahead and bring over, I have a small sealing iron with me today because I'm going to show you an option for how to turn the edges under for the center. So that's the only reason today I'm working with this smaller iron rather than a standard iron. Normally, of course, I would have a standard iron, but just to minimize the clutter on the table here, we'll be working with that. So we don't need this anymore. And let's put that aside. And we're only going to be working with just a couple of fans because you're going to be able to quickly see how neat this goes together. Let's put that aside. Okay, the first thing to do is you've got the right side and you've got the wrong side. Let's just bring those two points together. And I'm just going to put a little bit of a press in there because I don't want that to shift. Now, because I'm working with a red Dresden today, I went ahead and put red thread in my machine. This is where the Masterpiece Superior Threads color cards are so fantastic because this isn't just like color, it is thread. Actually, on these sheets there's 75 colors of Masterpiece thread. It's 100% cotton. It's a 40 weight Egyptian cotton, actually 50 weight Egyptian cotton, excuse me. 600 yards on a spool. I mean, that's a lot of thread, and I'll tell you, it's strong, but it's not like thick. So you've got, you know, too much density in your thread. So I cannot recommend Superior Threads enough to you. So we're working with the red today because we're working with a red Dresden. So we're just gonna, we've folded this in half and we're just gonna sew 1/4 inch. You're used to that in quilting. So let's do that now. Okay. This is so fun. Now this next step is absolutely essential, so don't miss this step. In order to turn the Dresden properly, you've got your 1/4 inch, boy, I can barely see it because that thread blended in, just blends in so well. I can barely see where my thread is. I'm going to put a little bit of a cut right there. Obviously, I'm not cutting my thread, but that little bit of that cut right there makes the turning possible. Let me show you what I mean. This is where the prairie pointer is going to come in handy. So we're going to take this to our pressing mat and we're going to go ahead and put the prairie pointer right in there. Now, I want to show you this. On the prairie pointer, there's a center line. Yes, there's measurements going left to right, but there's also a center line that's been etched into this piece of metal. You want the seam to line up with that center line. It's kind of like a pointer. So let's finesse that a little bit. So when we press this open, see how I push this open with my fingers? and how that seam is going right down that center. That's exactly what you want. We're just going to put a little bit of a press in that, just to hold that. Now we'll flip it right side out. And again, I'll be going in with the prairie pointer, getting that point just as crisp as I possibly can. Again, my seam is lining up with the center line on the prairie pointer. And you can slide this out at this point because it's metal. It heats up pretty fast with the iron, so you don't need to really keep that in there. There's no harm. You're not going to hurt the prairie pointer because it's pretty solid metal. You can leave that in there, but it's just going to heat it up, so you could potentially get, you know, your hand pretty hot. Look how cool this is. Look at that point. That is fantastic. Look at this. It's as sharp as it can be. So I'm going to go ahead and make a second one, and then when I come back, I'll show you how to sew them together. Now that I have my second Dresden fan ready, I want to show you how to sew them together, and this is a really neat technique. Now you can imagine that when you place them right sides together, you would think to start here, right? That's where you always start. But knowing that, you know, when you start sewing something, you typically go forward, go back, you reinforce that area because you don't want it to unravel. So that leaves a little bit of extra thread, and if you're trimming your threads right there, you could potentially be seeing them, you know, right at that juncture. For that reason, we're going to start down maybe 1/2 inch, and then we're going to go reverse, go back up to the top, back down, so when we trim our threads are down about 1/2 inch and they're not up here on the surface. Let me show you what I mean. Let's go to the sewing machine. Now, as you can imagine, it is essential that you stack these one absolutely on top of the other, because otherwise you're going to get some distortion in your Dresden. So I feel they're as stacked on top of each other as they can be. I'm going to go to the sewing machine, not starting at that top, but we're going to start about 1/2 inch down, and let's go in reverse. And then we'll just go right back over where we started, because that reinforces the stitch, and we'll go all the way to the bottom. So now when you trim your threads, I'll just trim them with here. Now I can leave a little bit of a longer of a tail, and I don't have to worry about that flaring up above and it's showing. So now when we take this to the pressing mat, of course you're going to press the seam open. So for that reason you might want to have a shorter than normal stitch length, just because you will be pressing open just to reduce that bulk. So let's go ahead and take that to our pressing mat, and we'll be pressing open. Boy, on the smaller projects, the sealing iron it's super hot. Wow, I love it. It's super hot. But on smaller projects like this, it's kind of like, why have my big iron? Because this is so light, it's so easy. I don't have to have a big ironing board, and it's, you know, if you're going to be using the iron all day, it's so nice to use this because it's much lighter. So there's the first two, and then I would add on the other 3 to make a quadrant of 5. Now this is really important. As I mentioned before, no, this is just a aqua set that we start putting together another Dresden. You've got your first 5. Now I would begin my next 5, and then my next 5 and next 5. Don't keep just adding on to the first one. You will eventually get maybe a little bit of distortion. So I want you to put this together in 4 sections of 5, and then sew 2 of those sections together, the other 2 sections together, sew that together top and bottom. So that makes sense. Now you'll cut your background piece, and we'll have the measurements to the Dresden project on our free download, which is at the bottom of the home page. So if you've not been there before, just go to shabbyfabrics.com. At the very bottom, there's free downloads. There's so much there. You're going to just be inspired. We are always coming up with fun stuff. It's fun to work here. They're so creative, this group of us here at Shabby, and we hope that you find inspiration there too. But go there and you'll find the measurements for the background. Now, what I found was really handy once I got my Dresden together, and even before I put the center on, this is when the temporary basting glue came in really handy. I prefer that over pins because I'm either poking myself or they're catching on my clothes as I'm sewing. So I really prefer the basting glue. So all you'll do once you get your Dresden together is you're just going to be putting dots of glue on here. This is a water-soluble product, so if you do wash your quilt someday, this will wash out, and I've never had any discoloration if I don't wash it out over the period of years. So I stand behind this product. It's very affordable as well. A bottle of glue will last you a long time. Just some dots of glue here and there, get that onto the background, and then you could be stitching it down with a coordinating thread or maybe with the monopoly clear from Superior with a bottom line coordinating thread in the bobbin. But what I want to talk to you right now about is the center of the Dresden. Now you've got a couple choices here. These edges are obviously turned under. I love that because, you know, once you get this sewn down, and you could obviously machine stitch that, either a blind stitch or a blanket stitch if you want that to show. You watch this isn't going to be coming up. It's down there. Now the center, if you similarly want to turn the edges under, I'm going to be showing you today how you can quickly do that using my applique technique. Or you could be using the quick method, which is just putting some heat and bond on the back of your center fabric. You would be using your center circle that came in the Dresden plate ruler set. You would just go ahead and draw around that. Oh, well, if this pen was working, you would just draw around that, cut that out, and then you would applique that on, just peeling the heat and bond off the back, ironing it down and stitching around it. You know, you've already turned these edges under with this technique. I like the idea of turning the center under because then everything is turned under. Let me show you how quick and easy this is using our applique technique. That video series is again on YouTube, free for you to watch anytime you want, and it's absolutely doable. So if you've never tried it, this may be a perfect time to jump in there and give it a try. What we did was we used freezer paper, and on the circle you can see there's the dash line. We went ahead and made our center circle the size of the dashed line diameter there. Iron that to the back of our center fabric, and then I've got my iron ready to go. This is a little bit of spray starch. This is an applique stiletto, and I have a fabric dye brush, and all I'm going to do is brush on a little bit of this, and then as I go I'll just be turning that edge under around the center, pulling it through with a stiletto. And if you watch the applique series, we tell you how to prepare your templates using freezer paper, and I definitely recommend 2 layers of freezer paper, just so it gives it a little bit more rigidity, so when you are pulling this fabric over that freezer paper template, it's not caving in on you. So you can see how I'm quickly moving through this process, and in no time flat that center will be done. And I think frankly I really don't know that fusible is any faster, because then you have to be concerned about completely securing the edges, potentially with a satin stitch, and that may be more density of stitching than you want, because if you do end up washing this quilt, you sometimes get just a little bit of fraying around the edges of fusible if you did not completely secure that edge. I've had that happen when I've used like a cute little blanket stitch with fusible applique, and then I've washed that project. I get just a little bit of fraying around those edges. So you can see that, I mean, was that what, like 45 seconds to a minute, and then I'm ready to go. And then all you have to do is you simply take this off, and you could use it again for another center. So once you get your Dresden all together and on your background, then you would again put little dots of glue, put your center in place. Then you would take your Dresden to the sewing machine and secure the edge with a stitch of your choice. So I hope you enjoyed learning how quick, easy, and fun it is to make the Dresden fan quilt with Shabby Fabrics.